Hi everybody, I'm Zilla Blitz and welcome to episode 1 of our game with Agincourt from the Men of Iron Tripack from GMT Games. The French, the English are ready to start the action. The battle is all set to go. We're going to jump right in and let the French get started attacking. Now I do have one favor to ask. If you see, I'm by no means an expert at the game, so if you do see kind of errors or rules that you're wondering about, please feel free to let us know down in the comments. That'll help it make the experience better for everybody. So let's jump in and get started. So let's talk a little bit about French strategy. Now the first time I played this battle, I accidentally turned the French archers into the same equivalent power as longbow, and it wasn't very pretty for the English side. But we're going to discount that replay. Second replay, I had learned in the first replay that just marching this French battle, Orleans battle, straight forward into the longbows decimate them. There's just nothing left. They get wiped out. So what I tried to do instead was to try to swing them through the woods over here along the west side and try to have them flank the English position. However, it was pretty easy for the English to shift this longbow here, move everybody over, plug the hole with this longbow here, and then they backed up all of the dismounted men-at-arms. They shot the horses out from the mounted men-at-arms. They created a massive confusion with this battle over here. I brought the French archers up, got them up here. They were actually able to punch a hole in the English lines. We had nobody to run up and fill the hole because these battles were too far back. So this battle, what we're going to try to do, instead of trying to flank or instead of trying to charge, we're going to try to create some holes in Orleans' battle here, bring up some of the archers to shoot at Henry's battle here, because he's only got one longbow, one dismounted men-at-arms, and one longbow in reserve. Hopefully punch a little bit of hole in here, at least weaken them, and then rush our dismounted men-at-arms for Orleans battle up into this, punch a hole through the English lines, try to capture the standard and the wagon, and end the battle real quick. Because this roadway here, even just moving into it, only costs one movement point. So it's 1, 2, 3. We can rush forces straight down this road pretty quickly, and I think we have to take advantage of that. So that's the French plan. Let's jump in and get started. Before we start the battle, we have to take a look at the seizure counters that were selected by each side. These were randomly distributed, and the English get 4 and the French get 2. So if we take a look at these, the French have a seizure opportunity, which means that they'll be able to try to seize the initiative from the English as the English try to continue their activation. However, the English have a seizure negation. Now, in a two-player game, these would be hidden from each other, but in a single-player game, basically what would automatically happen is that the French are going to play this and the English will play this. So we're going to say those negate each other out, and we're just going to remove them from play. There's no sense in keeping them in here. However, the English, that leaves them with a treachery counter, which is actually fairly handy. It means you can instantly disorder one French unit, so they might use that early on to try to take advantage and break the French attack. They have 2 seizure opportunity counters, so it might be a decision for the French as to when they play their seizure negation. So we'll leave the English with these 3 and leave the French with this 1 and get started with the game. So the battle starts with the activation of Orleans battle, which are these 8 units right here, 6 dismounted men-at-arms and 2 mounted men-at-arms. So what we're going to try to do with this movement is, rather than pushing them forward to attack, we're going to try to maneuver them a little bit to create a pathway for the archers and yet leave this roadway open for them to charge down it afterwards. So we're going to make those moves now, and then we'll take a look at how they turn out. Here's what it looks like after we've moved Charles Orleans battle. We've basically shifted this mounted men-at-arms back here because they can go 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and get a charge off on Henry here through this gap in the lines. We've moved this dismounted men-at-arms back from the line here to create a gap for the archers to come up. We've moved the dismounted men-at-arms over here to get them out of range of these longbows behind the trees, a defensive move. We've moved the mounted men-at-arms a little bit closer to the middle so they can perhaps follow this mounted men-at-arms through that gap if we can get it. Now, next move with the French, we're going to try to get the archers up. We're going to have David de Rambres try to continue the activation to have the archers come up here on either side of the road and get some shots off on these units here. Hopefully, for the French, they can hold the activation. Now the question for the English side is whether they want to try to seize the activation with one of those seizure activation chits they have. However, if they fail, this battle can go again, which might allow the French to maneuver even more. So we're going to have the English pass on trying to seize the activation from the French and let them see if they can continue it of their own accord. David de Lambres has a 3 for an activation to continue activation, so we need to roll a 0, 1, 2, or 3 for the French in order to be able to hold the activation. This is a big roll for the French. A 9. They fail, and the activation will now switch to the English. So let's see what the English respond with. English, now that they have gained activation, could activate any one of their 3 battles. We're going to start with Thomas's battle down here. One is because he has an activation rating of 3, which is the lowest, so it's good to have him sometimes go first, and then have King Henry go second, because he's got a much greater chance to continue the activation. The other thought I had was to have Edward of York have his battle activate, because we can get a shot off at Charles d'Orleans, the leader, and if we got really lucky, sometimes you can kill the leader. However, at range 3 with the dice roll modifiers on the longbows, there's no way we can kill the leader. So it doesn't make sense to go with this one. We're going to go with Thomas's battle down here, because he's going to get 3 shots off at range with longbows at these dismounted men of arms. So let's get busy. Let's start with these longbows here on the west edge of the battlefield. They are going to fire at range 3 at these dismounted men of... Oh, actually, let's change that. Let's fire at the range of 3 at the mounted men of arms, which might get us a little bit more interesting a result. At a range 3, the longbows have a dice roll modifier of -1. And here's the combat results for them. Let's roll and see how they do. 3. That's a terrible roll. Modified to a 2. On mounted men, that has absolutely no effect. So the English start off their battle here with a rather dismal shot, and will mark these longbows with a fired marker. Let's go next to the longbows right beside them, which will be here, and they're going to fire at the only unit they can, these dismounted men of arms. And the dice roll here is -1 again, because it's at a range of 3. 4. -1 is 3. Again, no effect. Now these are firing at range, but still we can expect, I think, a 50% chance or so here for these to have some kind of an impact. This is dismounted men of arms, so they're just going to stand there at peace. The longbows, however, are going to fire. Let's see if they can take out this dismounted men of arms that are closer to the front. Again, -1 on the die roll, because they're firing at range 3. A 0. That's 3 terrible shots for the English longbows as we start out the Battle of Agincourt. No effect whatsoever. Next, we're going to try to have Edward of York to continue the activation. His activation number is a 4, so we need a 0 to 4, a 50% chance the English can continue the activation. Normally, I'd like to follow with Henry, because he has an activation rating of 6. However, Henry has his modifier of -1, and York is within command range of Henry, so we're going to subtract 1 from York's die roll, giving him a 60% chance to continue the activation, and that will allow us to get 3 shots off with these outside longbows here on the eastern edge of the British formation. So let's roll and see if the English can hold the activation. A 0. Perfectly. No problems. So the English have held the activation, and this longbow unit will now get a chance to fire at the French. Let's start with the French longbows on the outer edge of the formation. They are at range 3 to these dismounted men of arms. They're going to fire. Again, with the longbows at range 3, it's a -1 modifier. Let's see if York's longbows can be a little bit more accurate than Thomas's. 0! What is wrong with these English longbows? Come on, guys. You're not living up to your historical counterparts whatsoever. We'll drop a fired marker on them. And let's move now to the next one in line at a range of 3, firing at the same unit. See if they can do better. -1 die roll modifier. Oh my goodness, these English, what's wrong with their bows? Another miss. No impact on the French. Normally you'd expect at least 2 or 3 disordered results from these attacks. Let's go next in line to these longbows here. Now they can fire at range 3, and they can take a shot at Charles's group of dismounted men of arms anyway. Might as well worth a shot. Dice roll modifier -1. Come on, English, let's get going here. 3! Gosh, these are terrible. So Edward of York's longbows all fire, discharge their arrows, and the French just haughtily laugh and giggle at their ineffective shots. All right, let's see if the English can continue their activation. We could come back to Thomas to reactivate, but we're going to try to go with King Henry because his number's so good, and I think Thomas's chances are going to be lower now. And now that the English have already had one successful continuation of an activation, for every time we have a successful continue activation, the next time you try to activate, you add an additional 1 to the die roll, which makes it harder for sides to continue their activations. So normally Henry would need a 0 to 6 to activate, but because we're adding 1 to his die roll, he's going to need a 0 to 5 to activate, and his own effectiveness rating doesn't apply to his own roll. So a 0 to 5 for the English to be able to continue the activation and let Henry's battle take charge. A 2. Well, they're bad shots, they're getting low rolls, but they are getting good activation rolls, so their command structure is holding up nicely here. So let's go to Henry's battle and see what we can do with them. Okay, just because it might be of help, we're going to have the longbow that's in reserve here just kind of shuffle up along the road and take a position right behind the line, because that way it can fire 1, 2, 3, it can fire over its own units at a little bit of a penalty. Anything that comes up in here, and we're expecting those French archers to move up shortly, we should be able to get a shot at with these longbows in the next turn. I mean, we could move and fire and it doesn't really matter, but we might as well move them up now. Okay, the only thing that really Henry's battle can do is this longbow here, because this longbow's still out of range, and it can get a shot at Orleans's battle here at a range of 3. So we will set that up and take that shot. And just to kind of share the odds here, I mean, you can see the results table. There's a 40% chance on these shots that the French unit's going to be disordered, and the English have missed all 6 of the shots up till now. Let's see if the archers under the longbows under Henry's command can do a little bit better. Firing at Orleans's battle, an 8, -1 is a 7. That means that Charles's group here, his dismounted men-at-arms, are now disordered. So as you can see, we've flipped the counter here to disorder the dismounted men of arms under Charles's command. The English are going to try to continue their activation again. And we're going to go over here. We can't do you can't continue the same battle twice in a row. We're going to try to come back over here to York's battle, which is normally a 0 to 4. Henry gives them a -1 dice roll, making it a 0 to 5. However, the English have had 2 successful activations now, so it is a 0 to 3. Still not bad, a 40% chance of continuing the activation here. Let's move the dice roll tower in and give it a roll. A 6. The English fail, the activation shifts to the French, and the French get to respond. So the French are going to activate this battle in here, David de Rambardes and the archers, and we're going to try to shuffle them through this gap and get them to shoot at the English archers, the English line, and do some damage and then charge through with Charles's battle here. However, the English are going to use their treachery counter right now. This is a good time, I think, to do that, and we're going to play it on this archer unit right here because it's right in the middle and pivotal, and that will mean that this archer unit is disordered. And because of the special rules for this battle, French archery units and crossbows cannot come out of the disordered state, so this will be permanently disordered. And I think it's a good move for the English to do that, and we will dispose now of their treachery counter. Just a quick side note, David de Rambardes has activated his battle here, and you might think his command range is 4, so 1, 2, 3, 4. You might think that, oh, this archery unit, this group on the end is out of range, command range, but because it's next to a unit that is in range, it is actually still in range. So we can kind of draw a contiguous line. So all of the French archer units are in command range right now and can act normally. Let's start with these archers here, and we're going to have them move up and try to take a shot. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, a quick note on the movement. You might be thinking it's not road to road, so it shouldn't be at the movement road cost. Actually, I got this clarified as part of playing this, but it's moving into a square with road and clear that costs 1 hex. So this actually is a 1 movement point cost move. So 2, 3, 4, and he's got a movement to 5. He's going to fire right across at Henry's dismounted men of arms. One of the ways I think the French can try to swing this battle, if they get off a super lucky shot, they might be able to actually kill King Henry, and that would swing the whole battle. So it's worth it to try to take that shot as quickly as possible. At a range of 2, French archers have a 0 dice roll modifier, and they fire their arrows. A 2, no effect on Henry's dismounted men of arms. That's a dismal. Both sides' archers have not started off well here. Okay, we have to try to figure out what to do with these archers here that have been disordered through that treachery counter. Now, checking at the rules closely, the movement penalty that reduces their movement from 5 to 4 because they're disordered occurs in next activation, not the current one. So we can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and put them up here. We're going to have them try to take out these longbows, although I think it's going to end badly for them, and actually kind of hoping they get forced to retreat because then we can bring these archers up here and have them fire. So let's see how this works out. Firing at a range of 2, there's 0 dice roll penalty modifier. However, there's a -1 because they are disordered. Firing at the longbows, and the longbows will get to return fire. It's 0. God, that's a terrible shot for the French. The English longbows will get a chance to return fire. Firing at range 2, longbows add 1 to their die roll, so they're going to get fired on the disordered status of the chart here. They fire a 2, plus 1 is a 3, forcing the French archers to retreat, and the only square they can retreat to is that one there. So, not a great start for the French archers here in trying to punch a hole in the English lines. Already I'm losing confidence in the French strategy here. We're going to move this archer unit, which is a 1, 2, 3, 4. I was hoping it would be able to get here to leave the road open, but it can't. And it's going to block the road for the units behind it, but I think we have to do some damage before we try to send Orleans' battle forward, so I think we have to try to move it forward. It's going to fire at King Henry's dismounted men of arms. It has a dice roll modifier of 0. Gets a shot off of a 7, which is a good shot. That disorders King Henry's mounted men of arms, so we'll flip them over, put them in disordered status, and put King Henry back on top of them, and move on. Right, I think it's too congested already here to bring these crossbows up into the battle here through this line. That's just going to block everything up. So we're going to try to change French strategy here and see if we can turn the flank here. To do that, we're going to move David de Rambouillet's 2-4 here, so he can still remain command of some of these archers over here. This unit way in the north side's out of command. Then we're going to have his other archers move 2, 3, 4, 5. It's a 3 movement to move into the woods. And they can fire on the longbows here. Now the longbows are in wooded terrain, as are the archers. That's going to modify the dice rolls for these. And let's do this attack now. So in this battle, the longbows will get to return fire. The crossbows are going to fire. Their dice roll modifier at range 2 is a 0. However, the longbows are in wood, so there's a -1 penalty to the die roll. Crossbows fire at the archers. 0. I've never seen so many zeros. What is with these archers for both sides? The longbows are going to return fire. At range 2, they have a dice roll modifier of 1, but the crossbows are in the woods, so it's going to be -1 to level that out at a 0. The English longbows return fire. A 7. That's an effective shot, and the crossbows are disordered. And like the archers, they cannot come out of that disordered state. The French attack here is going nowhere. Alright, so we're just going to finish off the French move by moving these crossbows to the outside here, 2, 4, try to get them up, and then just shuffling these Genoese crossbows into the middle with a 2 movement. Actually, they go uphill, so it's a 3. So, because we're going to leave this gap open as best we can, and that brings this element, this battle, to the end. So the French are going to try to activate Charles de Orleans' battle. We're going to see if we can push forward a little bit here. This plan has completely not worked. I mean, we've only got King Henry's dismounted men of arms a little bit disordered, and everything's kind of disorganized here at the French attack. So this is not working. But we're going to activate Charles's battle, see if we can. He needs a 0 to 4 to roll. Now, we could play the seizure opportunity card by the English, but again, if that fails, the French would be free to activate their archers again, and I don't want to let that happen. So we're going to let the French try to fail on their own. They need a 0 to 3 for Charles to continue the French activation. They get a 1. This is good for the French. Maybe. We'll see how they can do. Alright, so I've been looking at Charles's possible moves here for quite a while, and it looks really hopeless. Even trying to get adjacent to some of these units, the longbows are going to just butcher us. But we're going to give it a shot here. I think it's time to move forward. So, dismounted men of arms. Basically, what we're going to try to do is move these 4 French units up, try to get them in position here, and because of the way these stakes work, we can actually get one-on-one battles all the way across, because a mounted men-at-arms unit can't attack across those stakes, so it can effectively ignore those longbows, which I think will work to our favor here, for the French's favor here anyway. But it's still going to be, it's a tall order, and it's not going to work, I don't think, but I'm not sure what else to try. So let's move these up and get going here. So their first dismounted men of arms are going to move up. And the French longbows now, we get that reaction fire because they are they've moved adjacent to the unit. Firing at range 1, the longbows get a +2 modifier, and they're firing on the dismounted men-at-arms in the open. They get an 8. which is a 10, which of course disorders the unit and scatters them about. So yeah, we're going to see quite a bit of that, I think, as we go through these. Next up, the mounted men of arms. Now, I was thinking they could charge because they've got an open run up here, but you can only charge if there's 1 or 2 hexes open between that, so they're too far away to charge. So 2, 4, 6, they're going to come up here. Likewise, the longbows get to fire at the mounted men at arms, +2 modifier to the die roll. Oh, I thought it was going to be a 0. A 6 makes it an 8, makes it unhorsed. So they are both, we're going to switch this unit out then, bring in the unhorsed unit, and then flip them over because they get disordered as that happens too. So a little bit of fumbly fingers there. So yeah, that didn't work out very well. They got their horses shot out from under them and they're disordered now. But maybe we'll get a lucky roll here and one of them can get through. Let's move up next. These dismounted men of arms are going to move up forward here and eventually try to attack here, but the longbows can fire at them first. So they get a +2 attack. 5 + 2 is a 7. Yeah, they've been frazzled and disordered as well. It's not going well here for the French. But this is the biggest one. Maybe they'll get lucky here. Dismounted men at arms moving up on a 2. They could get through to Henry's battle if they succeed at this. However, this longbow again will get to fire again at them because they've moved adjacent to them. +2 to the die roll. 2 + 2, 4. Oh, no effect. They've held their resolve. So the French get a dismounted men of arms, undisordered, not disordered, normal state next to Henry's battle right here. This could be a favorable attack. All right, so the French are going to begin their shock attacks, and this is how we're going to do it. This one's going to go here. This one's going to attack both. It's going to get mauled. This one's going to attack the longbows, and then this dismounted men of arms is going to add the attack King Henry and his dismounted men of arms. Now, I realized after this I could have actually manipulated the facing of these French units to ignore some of these units in here, but I didn't realize that at the time, so it's too late to do that now. But let's get started. We're going to start with the first shock attack out here on the end. A dismounted men of arms. We're going to figure out the odds. It's a little bit complicated, so I'll walk through it. Alright, so let's walk through the combat on this one. First, we're going to start with the Defender's Shock Defense die roll modifier, which is +1, which is good for the French. Then we look for a strength advantage. It's 1 unit on 1 unit, so there's no strength advantage. The weapons matrix, where we compare dismounted men at arms against longbows, is a +2, so we're up to +3 on the French roll. And now it all starts to go bad. Because they're attacking across the stakes, it's -3, so now we're at 0. Because the defenders are in the woods, it's -2, so now we're at -2. And because the attackers are disordered, it's -4. So the best the French can really hope for is a no result, but they're probably going to get pushed back. A 9. It's actually really good attack for the French. -4 is a 5, which is no result. So they stay there. Well, it's too bad we wasted the 9 for the French, but yeah, that was not a bad attack. Alrighty, so now let's have the dismounted men at arms here attack the longbow here. This is +1 for the longbow, +2 more because of dismounted men at arms against a longbow unit, so +3 across the stakes. However, -3, making it a 0, and the French are disordered, so -2 to our die roll. Get a 1. -2 means attacker is disordered and retreat 1 hex. We're going to assume that this unit is not going to retreat, so we're going to push this unit back right over here. And the assumption is that this unit's going to have to retreat, and if we pull them here, they would get eliminated because they can't retreat. So we're trying to not eliminate units by retreat. A disordered unit that gets further disordered has no effect on it. So one quick correction. I had intended to move up Orleans battle here, then shift the rest of the battle over, and then start the attacks. Even though we haven't done that, I'm going to allow the French to do that just because that was the intention. I got kind of focused on what was going on around here. So I'm going to adjust Orleans battle, have them shuffle over here, which was the original intention. So here's what it looks like afterward. We're going to hold this unit still so they come out of disordered status at the end of the activation. Move this dismounted men of arms up here, the mounted men of arms from over there over to here, move Charles over here, and then move this dismounted men at arms up here into this space. So that's kind of what the original intent was. Now let's get back to resolving our attacks. Next up, let's resolve our unhorsed unit, our French unit attacking. They have to attack both of these, so we're going to calculate both combats, roll both, and then apply them both results to this unit, as well as any result that would happen to each one of those units independently. This unhorsed men-at-arms matches up against the longbows at +1. The longbow has a +1. That gets it to +2, and then it goes downhill again. Because of the stakes, it is now -1, and then it is disordered, so -3 on this die roll. Let's see what we get here. A 9. Oh, that's a very good attack for them. -3 on a 9 is a 6, which gets us Defender disordered. Hey, that's a pretty good result for them on this one. So, the longbow unit will be disordered, and the attacking unit is actually okay. So that's pretty good here. I just realized there's one thing we made a mistake on. I just caught it right after we did the result, which is a strength advantage. Because this is 1 unit against 2, there's a further -1 on this unit, and I caught it as soon as I resolved that one, which means that instead of a -3, it's a -4, and a 9 minus a 4 gets us a 5, which is no result. So I'm fixing this because I caught it right away. This longbow is not disordered because of the attack. Now let's resolve this second combat result. What we've got here is we've got unhorsed unit against dismounted men of arms, which is a -1 for the attacker, not very good, plus the -2 on this unit's individual rating gets us to a -3. And the train is fine, but they are disordered, so -5. Let's come over here and let's get our die roll going. 2 minus 5 is -3. This is attacker disordered, retreat 1 hex. So we will pull them back here for that space, which is kind of what I thought might happen for the result. Alrighty, so this is the moment the French have been waiting for. We have a dismounted men of arms that's not disordered attacking King Henry and his disordered dismounted men of arms. The die roll modifies, the units match up at a 0. This unit has a -2 individual rating, but those are the only die roll modifiers that apply to this attack. King Henry's charisma only applies in offense, not in defense. So we have a die roll modifier of -2 to this attack. And basically, if this unit is retired, which is a 20% chance, 30% chance that it happens, then King Henry has to roll to see if he would be a casualty of the battle. So this is a big French hope. It's not likely, but it's possible. Let's see what we get for the French die roll. They need a big one. 5. That's not big enough. -3 on the disordered side. -2 on the disordered side is no result. All that work, and the French attack does not get them anywhere. Looking back to the center of the line, the last thing we can do for this battle is, because this mounted unit did not move or fire, if anything happened to it, we can undisorder them. We can rally them, and they are back to full strength now. So next up, we need to roll for kind of continuous activation for the French. So looking at the strategic positioning here for the battle, it doesn't make any sense for these units in the back to try to activate. There's no really place they can go yet. What would be very advantageous to the French is if these archers, which are in range, especially these 2 units in the front line, could actually fire again. So we're going to try to have them activate. Now, David de Rambouillet's, his rating is a 0 to 3, but this would be the second time that the French have tried to activate, giving him a 0, 1, or 2 to try to activate. Now, that we could play a seizure card opportunity for the English, but it's a 0 to 6, which is basically the same 30% chance. So I'm not really sure it makes sense to play that from the English perspective. So we're going to let the French roll. Rambouillet needs a 0, 1, or a 2 to activate his battle and keep the French activation. This could be a huge roll for them. A 0! The French pull out some luck here. We'll be able to let these archers continue firing. So that's big for the French. And I think with that, we're just about shy of 30 minutes here. So on that dramatic moment where the French get to reactivate their archers and perhaps take some shots at King Henry, both of these archer units actually will be able to shoot at King Henry and his dismounted and disordered men at arms. And if they cause a casualty, that actually could be a casualty in turn to Henry himself. This is a big opportunity for the French. So we're going to come back on our next episode, episode 2, and pick up right where we left off with the French firing their archery units at the English units. A big opportunity for them. With that being said, thank you so much for watching. We will stop here. Let me know what you think. It's pretty much a mess, right, for the French units. it was such a great plan in my head to have all these units come up, but all we've really seemed to have done is get all these units disordered and stuff like that. But to the French benefit, they haven't suffered any flight point losses yet. None of these units have been eliminated yet. Had the English been able to get that activation and let loose with their longbows on all these disordered units, there would have been a lot of French casualties. So by the French retaining their activation, they're going to get a chance. This could actually turn the tide of battle. But let me know what you think. In retrospect, this wasn't the best French plan for sure, but I have an idea what to do next time. But anyway, I'm babbling. Let me know what you think. We'll see you in the next episode. Probably 2-3 days. We'll continue on. If you got any ideas on what the French can do to try to save themselves, I'm all ears, and I look forward to seeing everybody in the next episode. Thanks again for tuning in.